Hi everybody, how are you doing today? Today is Wednesday. Hold on one sec. August 27th. Yesterday I had a roller coaster ride of emotions and volatility as one of these rare situations where I ran out of a specific medication. I know that I've talked to you guys a little bit about it before, but I think it's definitely worth mentioning. First, hello to people who are new. I always forget that 80 to 90% of the people who watch my content are new people. So I want to say hello. My name is Sherry, and if you're new here, I do content on ADHD, autism, major depression, mental health issues, mental health medications, and overall my journey of being a human being on the planet who is neurodivergent and also struggles with some of these very important mental health issues. So I used to, for basically my whole life, didn't really talk about it. If I got to know people within my day-to-day passing, whether it be customers I get to know when I work retail, if people get close enough to me to get to know me and I feel comfortable with them, I might share it because I just know how common it is, unfortunately, to struggle with issues like depression. I'm not here to discuss if things are overdiagnosed or not. I'm not here to discuss if people should take medication or not, because that is a conversation that you can have with your doctor, and I am not qualified. Second thing to tell you is I'm not a medical professional. I'm not a mental health professional. I do not have any degrees in these areas. I don't have any license. Do not use anything that I say as advice without speaking to your doctor. I'm just a fellow human who is struggling and sharing my journey with you. Now that we've got that out of the way, if you're still here, thank you. To those who haven't been here, yesterday was kind of an anomaly. Alan, I want to take a minute to thank Alan, Tham, and Big J. Is it Big J? Thank you guys for your words of support yesterday, even if you just popped in and said, be careful. I ended up in a situation where I was without this one particular medication. There is I should probably do content on being an adult with ADHD, and my arm is starting to hurt, sorry. If Genevieve, if you ever see this, I apologize. I know that you say my face is way too close, but I hurt my arm. I fell. I don't know if I should be stretching it. I fell. I landed on my elbow. I don't care about this outside look of it, actually. That's a boo-boo. That's not a big deal. As uncomfortable as that is, it's what it did to my shoulder when I land in the middle of the night on it. I slipped and I fell and I landed that way, and it like jacked up my shoulder. So it's like very hard for me to lift up my arm. So I'm going to do research and find out what kind of injuries that can cause, just so that I know. Rambling, getting off topic, 4 minutes in. The main thing that I wanted to discuss is something that happened to me yesterday. I have talked about this before, but I think it's very worth mentioning. So a couple things that I want to talk about right now has to do with mental health medications, specifically antidepressants. So a lot of you know, if you do also struggle with major depression, you might already know, and hopefully your doctor or prescriber or psychiatrist, whatever professional that you get medication from, that you're prescribed from, to help you with your mental health condition, Hopefully they have discussed this with you. So, have we ever talked about the dangers of abruptly stopping your antidepressant medication yet? I don't know if we have. I think it's worth mentioning. The reason is I probably would not have wanted to discuss it if I never took this particular type of medication called venlafaxine, aka Effexor. But I think it's really important to talk about because it's very different from any antidepressant I've been on. So, generally speaking, most people will be taking, and I'll go back into my medical books. I used to be a nursing student, and I find it not only interesting but really important to talk about some of these medications. Disclaimer number 2, like I said before, reiterating, it's not my understanding, awareness, or expertise to tell you if you should or should not take medication. This is a very important topic. Why is it a very important topic? Because for people who struggle with depression, it's very treatable. It's very treatable. Now, granted, every person who has depression, your symptoms, there are some things that seem to be or tend to be somewhat universal. You'll know, like, even if you don't struggle with it yourself or have anyone in your family, you probably know somebody who is struggling with it, even if it's silently. And they might come to work and you wouldn't know because there's still stigma, there's still shame, and you just want to do your job. You don't want to talk about these things. And depending, if you work in the public, you really shouldn't, because you're there to do a job, not talk about your personal healthcare situation. But there's implications with this. So let's talk about why medication is important. So I don't have this camera on any kind of tripod right now because I just don't feel like getting it out. And I do have to clean up my space and make it safer for me. I had a situation that happened yesterday. I've been on this medication 5 years now, and this has only happened to me this is the 4th time it's ever happened to me where I missed a dose. So I believe it's only been 4. So I think I've been on this medication somewhere between 5 to 7 years. So for somebody like me who has ADHD, it's not simply about being distracted. And we can do a whole nother video or live about this because this is very important to discuss also. There are certain challenges that somebody with ADHD, and we're all different. Some people are primarily hyper, some people are primarily inattentive, like myself, and some people are, I think that a majority of people are a combination. But there are some things that come along with having a neurodivergent brain that has attention, that basically is attention deficit. Now, I don't want to make a whole video about attention deficit because I wanted to pop in here and talk about Antidepressant Discontinuation Syndrome, which sounds like super scary, and it can be if one of your medications is venlafaxine that I take. Now, medications are very, very important. It's really important to know that some of the people that, even if they do decide to share with you, whether it's a friend, a family member, or coworker, they might not share with you how bad their depression is. And when I talk about depression right now in this particular conversation, there probably is a spectrum with depression as well, as far as like the severity of it. And when you say the word depression, you might imagine somebody who is sad all the time, or maybe you do know about the physical exhaustion, which is very similar to burnout, and you physically can't move. And it's insane. It's crazy to me, the physical symptoms that come along with it in my particular case that I've experienced. Because most of us, when you think of brain chemistry and a chemical imbalance, you just think about moods, right? So you think about moods, or maybe somebody, if in a more severe, and for some people in a more serious state. Here, let me change this around here. And for some people, okay, I'm having issues with my camera. Okay. And for some people in a more serious place with their depression, if they're diagnosed with a mood disorder, they might struggle with unaliving, ideation, not wanting to be here. That is very serious. That's very serious. That's not a joke. So if you yourself have not struggled with any kind of mood disorder, it's very important, especially if you're a manager, to understand that if you have an employee and it's not your job to I don't know why I'm having camera issues today. How do I want to say this? Your job is to be a manager or a supervisor or a boss, not to be an expert in a diagnosed mental health condition that one of your employees might have. Just be aware that there may be more involved than just somebody mood swinging. Or in, of course, more worst case scenario, if they want to not be here anymore. I would think that people who have met me and gotten to know me over the years in my work environment, some of them might know, but they might be surprised to know that I struggle with this condition. It does run in my family, and I was actually resistant to accept that I have it. And I think part of the reason that I was very resistant to accept that I have this as a mental health condition is because I grew up with two parents who did everything the right way. You know, they did everything the right way. When they had struggled, they went to a doctor to get help and to find out, to get clarity, and to do what they needed to do to be functional. And they, unlike myself, they had a child, me, when I was little, to worry about. So I can't even imagine that kind of stress. And they were both working at very high stress upper, like management, sales for, you know, a telecommunications company back in the day. And that's not fun. That's not fun. They started out, I don't want to get into this whole thing about that. We can talk about that soon. It's really cool, their story of what they did for work and how that changed over the years. It's really cool, the things that they learned to do, because it was such a different time in the 80s, and the job opportunities were different, and that was so new and exciting. I've lost my train of thought. Let me stop for a second. So the whole reason I wanted to come on was about the medication issue. Now, bear with me. I don't script these videos. I just come in and talk to you like I would a friend or a family member. So, and because I have ADHD as well, and And ADHD, incidentally, and depression can be misdiagnosed as each other, right? So, and then I can do a whole video. Like, I've known that for 25 years, and I find that really fascinating. That's crazy to me that the symptoms can be very similar, and you would not think that, would you? You wouldn't think that. They sound like two totally different things. But if you have depression, you're going to have agitation and anxiety because you have a mood disorder that you can't control, and you feel like you should be able to snap out of it. So there's that. And also, if you have depression, one of the symptoms is you're going to be forgetful, you're going to be absent-minded, you're going to have a hard time thinking straight because you have a chemical imbalance. So some of these symptoms on the outside appear very similar to somebody who is struggling with my type of ADHD, which is, oh my gosh, I'm in a much better place today. Thank you, guys. I had another scary day yesterday. And for those who might be concerned for myself or my cat, she's safe, I'm happy. I just go into some kind of denial after it's all said and done. It's almost like I compartmentalize it, and I'm like, that's not me. And I just think it'll never happen again. But yeah, going back to how, just bear with me if you're new here. I do have ADHD, so sometimes thinking will be cyclical. Something will remind me of something, but I'll come back to it. So if my train of thoughts is not linear, bear with me. But it's all very, very important. It's very important, especially if this is a new journey for you, as far as you've been struggling with something for a very long time, and you're looking for some kind of understanding. And I think that what people like me and other people on YouTube sharing their experiences provide, that you cannot really get from going to counseling, is a sort of support. Even if you just come and watch some of my content and you go, oh, that feels really familiar. There's this thing called lived experience, right? And when I started coming to YouTube to watch videos of people who were struggling with things like ADHD, because I wanted to start talking about it myself, because it's something that I know a lot about, because I was diagnosed 25 years ago. And I'll do another video soon, because there's got to be a better way that I can discuss it for you all to know. Yeah, for the last year, I've been wanting to do a series of videos. I'm getting off topic. I'm coming back on ADHD, because I have a lot of knowledge and also techniques that I have used, and tools for your toolbox. We can go over all of them, and we can go over why they work until you have some more comprehensive ideas to try. I do recommend, if you want to know somebody who actually talks about science, fact-based information, and not conjecture, not somebody who says, oh, it's way overdiagnosed. We're not here to discuss that, because there are actually people out there who are struggling with these things, and that's not helpful. That's not the conversation I want to have here. It wasn't until I started watching content on YouTube that I could see other people who had similar struggles to me, and them talking about it was very, very important. So when you're growing up or in life, you may not have ADHD or know anyone who has ADHD. You might have your own feelings about it. But if there were certain things you struggled with in life, just regular life stuff, you always have somebody you can go and talk to, right? You probably have a sibling, a family member, or maybe a close friend if you didn't have a family you could talk to. That there always is somebody who has gone through something probably you've gone through if you don't have any kind of mental health or neurodivergent struggles or challenges. And that is, that's very important. That's critical. I mean, that's how you decide like what your options are in different challenges, whether you're young and you're struggling in school, whether it's socially or knowing how to study better or how to deal with stressful situations with teachers or kids, or if you're a young adult and you're learning about relationships or jobs or how to get ahead, or you're an older adult and you're going through a divorce. You know, there's always, even if it's like there is mental health struggles either with yourself or a spouse, there is information that you can seek out. But there is something about finding people who have been in your shoes that is invaluable. And I think that that's been the missing piece in my life. And it's very important. I almost didn't create this channel. It's been about a year and I've had my own struggles still. So my desire to create this content came mostly from the point that I'm tired. I'm 50 years old. I'm tired of being afraid of being in trouble with a boss because I'm 5 to 10 minutes late every day. I'm tired of it being my responsibility to fix when it's part of a challenge that is in my brain that's physically and functionally different. This isn't conjecture. This isn't theory. This isn't something I diagnosed myself with. This is something that I have been diagnosed with 25 years ago, and I know I have. This is something that not only have I read the books, but I've talked with counselors and ADHD coaches and checked out all of the resources online. I've worked for seeking help and support for myself, Chad, and there's several others, and I'll link them at some point, either in the description or if I edit this, I'll put it on the screen. But there are several different, they're kind of like advocates. The resources that you can get articles from experts and people who are supportive in the community. So what am I even talking about? It's very, very important for us to come on here if we can. Not everybody, but if you feel this call to show up and be like, hey, guys, this is what you're struggling with and you're not crazy. What were the things that I wish somebody had said to me? I didn't have somebody to I wouldn't say hold my hand, but I didn't have anybody to tell me except a therapist, which is critical. You need support, right? Depending on how severe how much your ADHD or mental health challenges interfere with your day-to-day functioning, impair you. They are impairments. Think about this. Your brain is an organic machine, right? If you have a car or a computer and something goes wrong, you can open that up and you can find it's not living tissue. It's, circuits, circuit boards, chips, wires. It's machinery. with a computer. And then with a car, you've got some wiring, and you've got mechanical parts. Now, your brain is very complex, and there are different areas of your brain do different things. And we take it for granted every single day when we get up to go get breakfast in the morning, when we get dressed to go to work. There are certain functions that our brain does that come together, multiple complex functions from different areas of your brain, and they have to talk to one another very well as the delicate balance of all of these different neurochemicals. All of these things do this very complex dance, many things happening together to do one simple task of you getting your coffee in the morning. Now, you may have heard of like executive functioning, things like that, poor working memory. So these aren't just catchphrases, these are actual impairments. So, I always use an analogy to, if somebody has type 1 diabetes and their pancreas, I think, isn't making insulin. What am I talking about? So it seems like I'm going off topic, but I'm not. I'm making an analogy here. But you're dealing with physical organs that need to make certain chemicals or need certain chemicals to operate. If you had a car and the oil needed to be changed, would you keep driving it that way and expect it to work? No. So there are certain functions that our brain does, many, simultaneously. And there are slight physical differences in the anatomy of the brain of somebody who has ADHD. There are physical and functional differences in the brain, an actual organ, an actual machine that's a living machine, if you will, of somebody. You basically are ADHD. You are an ADHD person. You're physically different. There are 4 aspects of your brain that are physically different. Your frontal lobe that we all kind of know about, that's one. That's only one. There are 4. So executive functioning is your ability to decide what's the most important thing to do, and your physical ability to tune out the things that are not important. And I don't think that somebody who does not have it can translate in their mind what that would be like. So imagine that you have a list of things that you need to do in a given day. You're at work and you have to do it quickly too, because a lot of many workplaces, especially after COVID, they have jumped up the multitasking. Am I right? How many things do you have to sort out? How many things do you have to attend to in your day? And they expect you to do all of it, even if it's not humanly possible. So you have to be on your game. And this is not just about being distracted. So, wow, I did not mean to go down the ADHD rabbit hole, but we will talk about that soon, because I've been wanting to talk about that for at least a good 6 months, if not the whole time I've had this channel. Executive functioning is a function of your brain. The ability to sort out what is most important. Imagine looking at a list and second guessing yourself and never being able to choose one. Know that you have to. You say, well, why don't you just pick one? Okay, so say now you're super anxious because you're not sure. And these other things, you also cannot tune out the other things from distracting you. So those voices that keep coming in, you got to do it, got to do it, got to do it, it's still there. You can't do that. And that's like a basic thing that people take for granted. This is something your brain is doing all the time. This is called executive functioning. You needed to do everything everything from deciding the most important groceries to buy, how to attack your work, prioritize and get things done, goal setting, planning, thinking through the most important thing to do, choosing, and then following through. This is a skill you need to do everything. So this is a cognitive impairment. Now, you could take an ADHD medication and it helps some. When you first take it, it feels like a freaking miracle. If you're one of the people that it does help, because it actually doesn't help everybody. Yeah, I didn't understand that either, but apparently even, with ADHD, it's not just like a spectrum. Even though they haven't said that, that's how I think of it because of all of the people I've met over the years that I've talked to briefly about it. But I've never had anything like this place here on YouTube in my life where I could come every week and talk to people who also have similar struggles. So this is invaluable. Yeah, the executive functioning attention deficit disorder, they know, is an incorrect name for it. They cannot change the name. They legally cannot change the name. Why? Because there are people who have been working decades on our behalf to get us protections under the law, the protections with the Americans with Disability Act, and all of these other things, legal protections, which are important, even though it can be tricky to access. It's a lot easier to get accommodations for ADHD because it's a lot easier to get a diagnosis for ADHD than it is to get go through an assessment for autism, which is impossible in my situation. So that's a whole nother video. I thank you if you've been here this far. I thank you. I'm still a little bit off. I happen to be an individual who is diagnosed with both major depression and ADHD, predominantly inattentive type. So if you're new here, and I'm not going to get into a big thing because I was just talking about ADHD way too much because I really want to get back to talking about these antidepressant medications. I am not telling you which medication to take. I am not telling you anything to do. I just want to make sure that people are aware of how important it is not to become experts on these medications, not to become scared of these medications, because these medications for some people are like a miracle, especially with antidepressants. If you have somebody who is constantly struggling with unaliving ideation, I hate having, if I can just like pause for a second and say, I hate having to sanitize my words. I'm not sure if I can actually say the actual words here on YouTube, but I just want to say what it is. My channel is not for children. My channel is for adults. And these struggles shouldn't be sanitized, right? I should be able to say what they are because they're actual struggles people have, and they're scary. They're scary. For those of you who haven't had those thoughts or feelings, it's not a joke. So I've talked about everything in the kitchen sink, but what I came here to say. So to just kind of tie it all together so I'm not here too long. Too late. These medications are very, very important. They're very, very important. And they're effective. So the right medication for the right patient, we each have different brain chemistry, so something that works for me may not work for somebody, might make them feel worse. It is something that you do need to discuss with your doctor for those reasons.